Today, for the class, we're covering a variety of topics. I have down the title of this class is County Regulations and Emergency Procedures. What I'll be covering is the volunteer manual, the emergency procedures of what we do here at Placerita, and some of the future projects that we have in store that LA County Parks is working with the volunteers, PCNCA, which all of you are members of. So there's some very interesting upcoming projects that I'll be talking about. On your desk, you notice that I have the volunteer manual. There's like 3 handouts. There's a park map, a park volunteer registration form, also a live scan form. So I'll be going over all those details. Just keep those forms on hand at this time. You don't have to turn it in today. There will be a day that I'll probably set up maybe a couple weeks from now where I'll be bringing in a person that does the live scanning. And what we normally do is just pull you right out of class. I'll be in the other room with the live scanner. And it is a requirement that everybody passes their live scan in order to be a docent volunteer. Have any of the new students ever volunteered at any other facilities, or have you ever done any volunteer work? Most places, when you volunteer, it's not so structured and organized as what you're receiving today. There's usually not a manual available, and they're pretty loose on who they pick up for volunteers. We're very structured since we work with kids day after day after day. They want to make sure that there's nothing in your background that pertains anything dealing with kids. That's what they're really looking at. Criminal history, they look the other way on a lot of different things. DUIs are not a problem, but any violations with kids is almost a reason for not allowing you to interact here at this park unit. The manual is a great manual. Let me talk a little bit about this. This manual was created by Manny Marino. There's only one man in this entire LA County Parks Department that is in charge of all the volunteers. And I think his numbers were like 3,000 or 4,000 volunteers for the entire Parks Department. Now this manual, he admitted to me that he plagiarized it. He stole it from California State Parks and the LA County Sheriff's Volunteer Association. He was formerly a volunteer with the sheriffs and was an employee with the sheriffs. So he took their manual, and California State Parks were the leaders in the nation for volunteerism, and so he grabbed their manual. So he put the two together, and that's what you have today for the LA County Parks Manual. So it's very well written, it's very well structured, and it's something for you to go by, because if we didn't have this manual to kind of direct ourselves, or it makes you know where you're fitting into the whole scheme of things. So we have that live scan report, so make sure you just bring the forms to class every time you're here. And then filling it out is no big deal, it's really easy and simple. But like I said, I'll call you out of the class, and then what happens is that once your live scan passes, we do get you a volunteer badge. Ron, do you have yours?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So this is what they look like. Oops.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is what they look like. Very professional, very well made. Everybody has a number. All the employees have a very similar badge that I have to wear when I'm not in uniform. The only problem about these, it's hard to get. I mean, when I first started working here, it took years before we finally got our darn badges. And if you think about it, this is about the only thing LA County Parks is going to be giving to you, besides a pat on the back for donating hours. But that's really the one thing that you have in your possession that they will give to you. If you ever lose that badge, it's a nightmare. I have to call the LA County Sheriff's in, and they have to take a stringent report. They have to get all the facts, because it is considered LA County property. And so they're very picky. Someone else might be using it to falsify or get into a building. You never know. So we actually have to have a LA County Sheriff's report for a lost badge. Okay. Also, you notice I left a map on your desk. Everybody has a park map. There's a reason for that. First of all, most of the hikers, before we closed off the Canyon Trail, we had hundreds and hundreds of hikers that would come into my office, grab a park map, and then go hiking. And very smart thing to do, because you can get disoriented on our trails. You don't know where LA County Parks Trail ends and where the U.S. Forest Service trails start. And so if you look on your map, what you see in yellow right here, see where it's dotted, the dotted lines? That's the shape of LA or Placerita Canyon. We call it Natural Areas Park. So that is the park itself, where you see it's highlighted. Everybody see that? Where it's dotted out? No. Now let me show you. Okay, turn it. You see it? Where it's dotted out? That's the shape of the park. See the dotted lines? Yeah, go ahead and help.
Yeah, I see this.
Yeah. Now let me just show you something interesting. So this is what the park looked like before the fire. We had a massive fire, the Sand Canyon fire that came through. And what you see in pink is what the Sand Canyon fire burned. Okay, so it took out the majority of the park unit. There's very little left. But what's left was the most important piece, the nature center, the parking lot. It's where we all get together and do the school tours, the classroom. We saved the park itself. But it just shows you how bad that fire took out majority of the park unit. What year again? What about? It's been about 3 years now, 2.5 years, 2 years. This is the Sand Canyon fire.
July 16.
Okay. You know, we actually had 2 fires here, the Sand Canyon fire, and then later, about 9 months later, a year later, we had what I call the Disney fire at Disney Ranch. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Very interesting. I was here for both fires, and boy, I have stories to tell you on what happened here. So let's first talk about the manual, since I have to kind of go over this with everybody. You know, you can pretty much go look at it on your own. What's probably important is maybe looking at the table of contents, page 3. Take a look at that. It's got a mission statement, code of ethics, definition of a volunteer, your identification cards, dress code. Everybody looks like they're all dressing appropriately. Probably the most important thing, maybe go to page 5, Code of Ethics. Now when you're a volunteer here, you notice our docent volunteers, a majority of them, like Jim Crawley, and even Ron sometimes, but Jim's wearing our official vest, green vest. And so we have green vests for you to wear. Do they purchase the vest? Or?
They can do both. We have the green ones available for them to use, or if they want to buy their own, they can do that as well.
Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is that vest is very important to wear out there. Let me give you an example. I spent 28 years in California State Parks as a ranger, as a law enforcement ranger. And we have maintenance crews, maintenance workers there too. And they dress just like the Rangers do. And we even have what we call seasonal park aides, who are just like part-time college students that do work in the park. And they dress the same too. So everybody looks the same. And majority of the contacts the general public has is with the maintenance staff and the park aid staff. Very seldom a ranger staff. The ranger's out patrolling maybe 2-3 different parks. And so they very seldom see the ranger. But it looks like there's a lot of staff here in the park. And that's the same case here. Everyone mistakes my volunteers that are working here as a figure of authority, as somebody that belongs here. Who knows, they probably are getting paid to be here. And the same thing's going to happen for you as a volunteer. When you wear that green vest, you got to think appropriately and think of what the public is thinking about you. You're someone special here. They don't know you're just a volunteer, but you know, when you're wearing the vest, you're a person of authority. So just remember that. Keep those things in the back of your mind.
Excuse me.
Yes.
What do you mean just to volunteer?
Well, we have more volunteers. As we can see, we have more volunteers here than we do have staff.
Okay, let's go.
Not for long.
I'm struggling.
Let me tell you also a very interesting story here. I've told that many, many times. Every time I do this class, I tell it because I lived through it. California State Parks, and this is a California State Park, believe it or not. They own this property, and it's only county operated. I'm here working for the county, but the property itself is owned by State of California State Parks. I had spent 28 years with California State Parks. I still think it's probably the best state park system in the entire nation. And we absolutely have the best volunteer group. Just, it was unbelievable what we had. And it all went downhill. We had the very best. This was probably all the way up to around the year 2000. And they made a major change in California State Parks. What they did, not only did we have state park rangers, like myself, peace officers, which my job was 50% interpretation, 50% law enforcement. They then hired a new position called state park interpreter. All they do is interpret, give programs, full time. Once that came into play at all the parks, they changed everything with the volunteer groups. Because they then changed all the volunteer groups, they had the fun job of being the interpreters. Right? When you volunteer here, you're like our volunteers here. You get to interpret. You become the docents, meaning Latin teacher. And so you're teaching kids all these, you're doing the fun part of the job. State parks, once we hired a permanent full-time interpreter, they got rid of the duties of interpreting away from the volunteers because it was conflicting with paid staff. So they no longer had volunteers doing interpretive work. What they did, they made the change. The volunteers will now raise money for the parks. So they turn them into fundraisers, and that's not fun. Soliciting funds for the park so we can spend the money that you obtain, right? So you're very, very fortunate and lucky. And I never see, I don't foresee them ever hiring interpreters with LA County. So if you're a volunteer here, you're safe. You can always be a safe interpretive volunteer, which is why we here at Plaza Arena have so many teachers. We have so many retired teachers because I was a teacher myself. I taught for 3 years. And I thought that was going to be something I was going to do for the rest of my life until I landed a state park ranger job during the summer months. And once I got that, I said, I want to do this because I can interpret whenever I feel like it. But it's, when you're a teacher and then you retire out, you lose, what I felt is that you lose something. You lose, you know, the kids admire you, they respect you for who you are, they look up to you, and it's a fun job. And when you retire out, you seem to really miss it, you know, of interacting with people in that fashion. And here at Placerita, you can do that. Or if you never had a teaching job, this is a place to learn how to be a teacher. So we have a lot of retired teachers that are here at Placerita. Okay, going back to the manual. Let's keep going on through this thing. Okay, there is a variety of jobs. It's not just being an interpreter with the kids. As a volunteer, if you find that you want to work on our trails, we have a trail crew that just consists of volunteers. We have a weed abatement crew that goes and pulls weeds out for us. We have a gift shop crew. We have an animal crew, animal handling crew. We got just about anything that you can think of. You want to help me out and answer my phone, you can do that. You can sit next to me and answer all the phone calls that come in. But there's something for everybody. So don't feel that, you know, that it's only working with kids, because I know sometimes maybe that's not your gig, you know, that's not something what you really want to do. But there is something for everybody out here. And that's what's really nice about Placerita, is that they set up all these different sections of volunteering into. And it's all good, because we do need all these things. So don't just remember that before you give up on anything about Placerita. A little bit about the chain of command. So I'm the park superintendent, who's probably the highest paid person here, running both the operations of the park and the maintenance of the park. And I kind of oversee PCNCA, the Volunteer Association. If something goes wrong with the association, it does reflect on me. Now the president, Ron Kraus, he is the president of PCNCA. So if there's any problems that you might have or anything, see Ron. And then Ron will get in touch with me that there might be a problem with somebody or scheduling or any issues. So that's the chain of command. Talk to Ron and Ron will talk to me. Or else if there's something really immediate, you can see me at my desk. Like I said, I have an open door. Keep going. We talked about ID cards, media contact. What I noticed has happened over the last couple of years, nothing major for this park, but a lot of the other parks, is that be really careful on the social media in regards to taking photos of any of the live animals. Okay, we have live animals here at Placerita because we have the proper permits for possession and for interpreting the animals that you see here at Placerita. So, and we are the leaders. So we have about 6, 7 natural area parks, and we're the lead on that. We were the first ones to obtain the permit, and we are still today the leaders of any type of animals in this parks department. What has happened is that some volunteers in the past, it hasn't been recently, they go hog wild about all the live animals that we have here. Either it's the skunk, or it's the opossum, or it's the hawks that we have, or the owls. And on Facebook, they start putting all these pictures, and it's all out there. And all it takes is one photo of a hawk on a glove, and it's not done correctly. And the Fish and Game sees that, permits are pulled. That's all there is to it. That's how strict they can be. And so we're very, very cautious on the social media. I know Kim follows it, and that's my supervisor, and she'll immediately call me if there's any problems with animals. She's always monitoring social media for the sake of not losing the permits. Because it really is an honor to have the permits. Back to saying, one time they asked me to give a presentation to the union of the state park rangers, and I told them, this is after I worked here, I retired from the state. I worked here for about a year or 2 years, and I went back to the state, and I told them, guess what I found? And they said, what's the big deal? I found a way to lure the public into our state parks. And what it was, I told them about the animals. Because what I visualized here, we do a free animal program every Saturday, and we'll get 50 to 75 people every week. And it's a major lure to the public, and we never had that in state parks. We're always trying to figure out ways, how can we get the public in, what kind of events can we throw, and it always existed here at Plaza Rita because of the animals. There's enough animal lovers out in the city that make an effort to come and see the park because they know there's a free animal show. So I was telling that to all of the park rangers. You remember we got like 275 state parks in the state of California. And so they all grabbed that concept. And right now, I was just looking at their one of their newsletters, and there's animals posted all over that thing. So they caught on. The only thing is what they don't have are live animals at the park units. And the only reason why we have them here is because our animal keeper, Dave Stives, was a former, well, he still is, a falconer. And being a falconer, he knows, Department of Fish and Wildlife knows that that individual knows how to take care of that hawk or bird, that hummingbird. And when you have that bird 24 hours a day and you weigh them every day and you feed them, you caretake for them, they know that you're the person that should have possession of those birds. And that's how we got our permits. So it started here at Plaza Rita, and then it ventured to all the other natural area parks. So we're still honoring that. We don't take it for granted. We commit everything. Those cages that you see outside here, where you see the hawks, right? Those were just recently built, maybe 3-4 years now? And Fish and Game had set some new rules on the size of containing the birds. Well, we doubled it. We said, well, we're going to take that extra. So you want more is better. So we said, okay, we'll double it. It was 8 feet. We said, we'll do it 16 feet. Great, great, great. So that's just how we are, thinking more forward to everything. Timekeeping. Timekeeping is very important for volunteers here at the park for one special reason. If you have to kind of think in my position, okay? Right now, at this time, this Parks Department is in financial crisis. They're like $7 million in shortfall on their annual budget. Too much overspending, maybe. They moved to a new headquarters office, bought all new furniture. The lease is probably outrageous. Parking for the employees is probably outrageous. And they're looking at every way to generate revenue because they're in dire need of more money. And now, if you notice here at Plaza Rita, we don't charge for anything. It's free parking. The only thing we really charge for is camping, and which we don't have right now because the campground's closed. But sometimes we have weddings or picnic rentals. Those are the ways of making money. But no fees for tours, right? Or the museum tour. And so many, many weeks, I do a monthly report. I send out the budget, and there's a big fat zero there. It's what the park made for the county. So in order to offset that balance, that's where you guys come in. It's the tours that you're providing to the school groups, or to just voluntarily do a nature hike or plant hike. or a twilight hike or anything. So what I'm trying to say, those numbers are replacing the dollar figures. And they can't say no to those numbers because those numbers are just as important as money being brought in. You're making the contacts to the community. The community is supporting us. If every one of those volunteer, or if every one of those visitors wrote a letter of how much they enjoyed their experience at Plaza Rita, right? They would see that how much influence we have in regards when we interpret this nature center. So it's very important when you volunteer here is to put down those hours because those hours are in my report. It's just not the number of contacts that you made for the month, but it's the hours that you're giving because they give I think it was at $10 or $20 an hour of an estimate of those hours that you're donating is the real cost value. And it really is. We couldn't be doing everything we're doing here at Plaza Rita without my volunteers here. It would be way too overwhelming. But there is a intrinsic value to your time here. So don't forget to record your hours. It's very important. Okay, I think on Ron's desk, there's a computer there.
Yeah, actually, it's what Russell says is accurate, except for when you're taking docent training, we keep track of your hours by the attendance sheet. So you don't have to worry about putting your hours onto the computer while you're in docent training. When you get towards the end of the training, we're going to show them how to put your hours onto the computer so you can do it yourself from then on. But during the training classes, just make sure you fill out the attendance sheet and you'll be good.
Now, I'm not quite sure. I wrote down a bunch of names here, but another thing about our volunteers here, we just don't have volunteers per se volunteers. We have like the very best volunteers of all of LA County.
Yay.
Right on.
Right? The reason I say that is that when you guys take your break, you know how you guys always go to the other room and eat snacks or whatever, take a look on the wall in that little hallway right there because those are volunteer year awards for all of LA County. I think Jim Southwell was a recipient. I think Ron, you were a recipient. Yeah. Evelyn Vandersan, Bill Weber, and Heidi Weber. I mean, that's already 5 that are Volunteer of the Year award for all of LA County. That says a lot. Most nature centers, not to brag, but they don't even have 1. And here we have 5 sitting in one center. Tells you something, right?
Plus Andrea.
Andrea's a volunteer of the year?
She's got it.
Wow.
She's not here.
So that's
Well,
6.
yeah, for PCNCA, he was talking about the county.
Oh, no, this is the county one, yeah. This is the big one. I think there's a dinner and all that. It's pretty formal. Okay, so let's keep going. I have to kind of rush as my time kind of end. One thing too, also make sure you take a look at where it says in equality training. Okay, we have all the EEO guidelines. We don't discriminate on age or race or anything like that, social values or whatever. So we are typical of any government agency. And actually the county's super strict on this. I mean, super strict. I've never seen such a agency that's so uptight on these violations. I mean, let's put it this way. It started from LA County sheriffs that had problems. Now, there's a thing called CEOPS, and so it's a discriminatory, like in other words, an employee or even a volunteer can file a claim against another person. And LA County sheriffs had a major problem, so they created this CEOPS program. And Parks became the 2nd highest number of complaints of all of LA County. And all the other departments are way down here, Parks are way up here. And they're not sure if it's because the nature of the work, since we have so many maintenance guys working and we're outdoors all the time, or they're very foul-mouthed or loose-mouthed about things or whatever. But some reason we had a major complaint. I don't see it here in Plaza Rita, which is great. So, but just take a look at it because the county is very strict on that. Emergency procedures, public safety issues. I was, funny thing, okay, I was with my wife in bed last night, and then I was just thinking to myself, and she had earplugs on, she's been watching these Chinese videos. Anyway, so I told her, because my brother-in-law, who is a retired sheriff, he came over last night. And so I was telling my wife, I've been badged for 36 years. And then my wife, she looks at me and stares me down, like, what did I do, I said, what's wrong? You were bad for 36 years? What? Badged. I was badged for 36. Oh, I thought you said you were bad for 36 years. Something was going through the back of my mind. So I was thinking, yeah, because I have 28 years in state parks, badged as a peace officer, and then 8 years here with LA County Parks. Now they have me working as a park superintendent, and they gave me another label. If you look at my business card, I gave everybody my business card. It says Fish and Game Warden. Yeah, without warden's pay though. They just gave me the name. And they made me wear this hat. You ever see an Asian wear Now, it just doesn't fit, right? Asian, I got looks like this in state parks too. We wear the same hat in state parks. And one time in Malibu, I opened up Malibu Pier for the Olympics. And I had the Hells Angels come through. Malibu Pier was shut down because it got ruined by a storm. And so I was the key ranger that opened up the park, and they were very slick. They had front runners and back runners, and they like sectioned part of Malibu off, and making sure there's no sheriffs or cops anywhere, no CHP, and then the bikers came. And I was on the pier with the Hells Angels, and they didn't know where I came. My office is right next to the pier. So they knew there was no Code 3 vehicles or anything around. And I just happened to patrol the pier, foot patrol the pier. And I see all these bikers, right? And then the funniest thing, I hear them, it's the heat. And they all turned and looked in the water. Not one guy wanted to show his face to me. And here I'm walking down the pier with his hat on. They didn't know who the hell is this guy? Smokey the Bear or what? So just to give it a story. But anyway, yeah. So you're working. There's never been a problem here. I can handle law enforcement issues that happen here in the park. But I just got to tell you that this park is controlled, or in regards to law enforcement, by the LA County Sheriffs. This Parks Department is paying on a contract basis, I want to say an awful lot of money, I would suspect probably millions, to LA County Sheriffs to serve as their law enforcement entity. That's a big deal, because these LA County sheriffs that you see patrolling in the parks, that's all they do. They're serving as like the park ranger. They don't go on call outs in Santa Clarita. They stay only in the parks. And when the Parks Department pays them on a contract basis to provide law enforcement, then that is your responsibility. It shouldn't be mine stepping in, doing anything. I tell them what needs to be done out there. If it's dogs off leash, or someone trying to scope out gold with a metal detector or something, I give them the leads. But that's so who does law enforcement in LA County parks? Is it the Fish and Game Wardens? Is it the park superintendent? Is it CHP? Is it LAPD? Or is it LA County Sheriffs? Okay, remember that. For good reason. I think it might even be on the test. Yeah.
Just very quickly,
Oh.
if we're out there and we see something, there's always staff here that you call the office, so make sure
Yes.
you have the park number on your phone, and they would be the first
Yes,
Unless
always.
it's like an emergency, a 911 emergency.
Yeah, I'm here Monday through
Staff.
Friday from usually 5:30 to 2, and all the way up till 5 o'clock I have staff on. And then it is staffed on Saturdays and Sundays also. So there's always somebody from the parks in the office. So yeah, if there's any emergency or any reason, any medical things, contact the staff first, because we know exactly what to do. But if it's immediate, feel free to contact a lot of our volunteers. Our volunteers, you know, we have nurses, and most of them are teachers, so they know how to deal with emergencies. So, you know, I was an EMT, I had advanced first aid, regular first aid, CPR, so I'm fully qualified too. We have an AED device in the other room, so I'm qualified to use that. Many of our docents too. We have our own first aid just for docents, in case you're interested and you want to get trained.
What contact number do you want people to use if they need to make a phone call for support?
What do you mean, technical?
Well,
I mean, 911 is what we use if we need an ambulance. We just call 911. They're here. They all know our existence here at the park, even though it seems like we're pretty remote out here. So fire, whatever, 911. If there's nobody here, you can't get hold of anybody, you could just dial 911 on the phone. There'll be somebody
I'm
here.
at the park number.
Yeah, but it's.
Okay, the park number. I gave you my business card, and the park number is on there. Okay.
Isn't there an LA County Sheriff's number?
Yeah, that's a dispatch number. That's
Dispatch.
more for me to call.
That's for you, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But just call the park number. Like I said, let one of our employees know. All of my employees know what we call our dispatch number for LA County Sheriffs, and they'll send a unit immediately. Notice a little bit about building safety. There is a map I posted on all the doors, all the exits, on how to leave the building. That's just required. Also, if you go by the animal room, there is a policy that we set up on how to remove the animals in case of emergencies. Like I said, we had 2 fires, and both fires, we did evacuate our animals out of here. So we put them in boxes, we load them up in the van, and they're ready to go. Now in the past, operations was allowing the volunteers to do that. Totally wrong. Because I'm putting you guys in harm in order to get over here when all the roads are closed, there's a fire, active fire going on. Wrong thing to do, because the volunteers are my responsibility. And so I stopped that. And from the only person responsible for the fires is my staff here. Let me give you an example. The second fire, the Disney fire, I get a call from Hart Park, from Rachel Comulane, and she's the animal keeper at Hart Park. And she and the superintendent, Eric, were on their way to Placerita, and they're calling me at home, Russ, we're on our way to Placerita to help you evacuate your animals, and there's a fire at Disney Ranch, and it's headed right your way. So I'll be right there. I get my clothes on. I'm headed out to Placerita. And they were there before me, so they got the animals, got them out of here. Now there's 2 employees. I had Frank Hoffman here, and I had Jeff, and he's here today, my maintenance man here. And these 2 guys were here. And with the hoses, a leaky hose, a fire hose, and they planned to fight the fire. And what they did not see is what I saw driving to the park. When I was driving to the park, I saw all of Disney Ranch, all the perimeter hillside completely on fire. No fire crews, no fire department engines, no airdrops. The whole place, the perimeter of Disney Ranch was on fire. And it was right up against our park unit here. And Frank and Jeff didn't know that. All they saw was smoke coming in to the park. They didn't see how large of an area. So I come to the park and I see this fire hose that they hooked up. What, you guys are now firefighters? You guys are planning to try to stop the fire? No, you're not trained. I'm not going to risk your life. If you get hurt, it's my fault. Get out of here. And so I've monitored fires many, many times. So I chased them out of here, and then I monitored the fire. And the fire got so bad, I actually it got around the Walker cabin. We have a cabin out here, Walker cabin. And once the flames surrounded the Walker cabin, I called my boss, Kim, and I told her, I'm leaving now. I'm out of here. And Kim says, I'm almost there though, I'm almost there. She's trying to drive the traffic. I said, I'll wait as much as I can. I'll tell you what, I'll wait outside the park for you. So I drive outside the park, and then right when I drove right outside the park, remember that I have no engines in the park. I'm all by myself. So when I drive outside the park unit on Plaza Rita Canyon Road, then I see there's 2 Forest Service trucks out there that were there all the time trying to put the fire out on the other side of the roadway. The fire went through them and got into the park. And one of the workers, the Forest Service workers, there just happened to be a water truck coming down the lane, and he stops the fire. He stops the truck. He tells them, can you drop the load onto the fire? And the water truck guy says, yeah, I can help you out. So he turns the valve on, and the water just thrown right onto the fire, and he puts the fire out. The next day, the supervisor of that crew comes by and says, boy, that was a close call, huh? I said, yeah. And so we talked about that firefighter on his own initiative stopping that truck. Because I didn't think about it, he didn't think about it, but this one firefighter thought about it, and that's what saved the park. But anyway, so it's not your job, it's my job for firefighting and all that, putting the animals away and all that. So just wanted to ensure that you knew that. We talked about medical emergencies. Probably before, when we had the trail going, when we had the Canyon Trail open, I had a lot of responses for lost hikers and injured hikers. A lot of broken arms, scratches. I had this one hiker he was a experienced elderly hiker, and he hiked to the first waterfall, and there's actually 2 other waterfalls, not on my property, but the Forest Service property, and he hiked to the 3rd waterfall. And he couldn't come back down. He was stuck. He had his cell phone, he called me. I said, you really gotta come back the way you came. And he says, but the Los Pinedos Trail, which is parallel, is right, I know where it is. I said, you're not gonna make it over there. You gotta come back the way you came. And he says, I'll try, but I don't think I can. Because there's a couple of steep ledges that he climbed. Well, he didn't. And then I said, well, call me about 4 o'clock, and then, we'll talk, see what you do. I never got a phone call. And I waited, 5 o'clock, park's closed. Oh no, he hasn't called me back. Is he lost? So I ended up calling search and rescue. Here comes a helicopter. Here comes all the LA County sheriffs, search and rescue crew. We went out, we're searching 6, 7, about 8 o'clock. We finally find the hiker. And he's back on Plaza Rita Canyon Road. Remember, he parked here, but he's by Walker Ranch, walking back down, a bloody mess. And so, hands and knees, he crawled from the Waterfall Trail to the Los Pinedos Trail. I mean, there is no trail there that crosses through, and hands and knees, he came down the Los Pinedos Trail. And a totally bloody mess. I mean, I'll never forget that story.
Why did he say he did?
Huh?
Why did he say he did?
Didn't what?
Did he say why he did that?
Because he knew there was another existing trail that was an easier climb down. So where he went on the waterfall trail, boulders and rocks. And once you get up there, and it was getting towards the evening, the low light. He didn't think he could make it back down. So, and he wanted to go home, you know. We had his family was calling, you know, they were concerned about him and everything. He was coming here to the park all the time. He was a regular, but an experienced hiker, he probably did. Unless, you know, he had to wait for the helicopter to see him. He probably did the best thing that he could have done. I mean, like I said, he was an experienced hiker. He knew what he was doing. He knew that Los Pinedos Trail is in that other direction, a westward direction from the waterfall. Yeah.
It was, one day we were, I think it was just Brenda and I were here, she answered the phone, I think, in the store. And there was a lady that was lost up here in the hills.
Oh, is that the one that was yelling and screaming?
Yeah, and I talked to her for a while,
Yeah.
but she had no idea where she was.
Yeah.
She had no landmark.
There was a hiker. Okay, if you want to give advice to a hiker, the best thing, make sure you carry your cell phone with you,
And stay
and
on
make
the
sure
trail.
it's charged. Make sure you have a full charge. This lady was a lost hiker with a low battery on her cell phone. So when she calls the park, she's just in panic and hysterical. And she's concerned, my battery level's so low, and she's in tears. And we could never get a word in. And the husband is here at the park. And he says, that's my wife. She didn't come down. I said, yeah, she's lost. She's been calling. And then he hooked up with, yeah, she's been calling me on my cell phone and her battery level's low, blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, when she calls again, you know, try to find some landmark. Right? Let me know where's the sun? Where's the sun in relationship to where she was at? She was on the loop trail. So she calls, and then her husband says, where are you at? And she says, I see a cemetery. I see a cemetery in front of me. Well, a cemetery? That's way, way down on the other side by Carl's Jr., you know, Newhall, right? Way over there.
Like on the Whitney Trail?
Yes, yes. And so she was way on the other side. And then what was so bad, so I told the husband, you better meet her by over the, you know, off of Railroad Ave, by Carl's Jr. over there. There's a place where she'll come out. That guy, he wouldn't do anything for her. You know, he had excuses. I said, come on, you gotta help us with this. Don't expect me to do everything. I said, it was like way out there. You know, but she was a hysterical. She was just, you couldn't even get a few words in because she was just panicking. She was totally lost. She went the trail one way. She didn't recognize anything. She went the other way. And then she realized she was lost. Her battery's getting low. It's getting late in the evening. So make sure, if you tell anybody, make sure when you hike, take the cell phone, grab a map. We have a topo map in this other room here. Boy, that's been a huge savior. Before, when we didn't have that topo map, we just had this flat map, right, to give out. So people come in like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Oh, I'm going to do this loop. I'm going to hike all of this, you know, 10 miles. 10 miles of hiking. And their cars parked in here. You know, we locked the park at sunset. And you know what it is? They don't recognize the topography of the loop. They don't recognize it. But when I tell them that we used to have this outside, I push it outside so the public can see it, because they all use our restrooms anyway, the hikers. But when they see the topo map and they say, wow, that loop is way here on the top and it's up and down, they realize they don't have enough time for that hike and they'll come another day early in the morning to do the loop. So that topo map has helped out tremendously. I noticed the phone calls went way down for emergencies because of that topo map. So that's been a big, big help.
But this
Yeah.
lady was by herself. This was a different case.
Oh, okay.
And she was totally lost. I talked to her, I couldn't figure out where she was. I had no idea. But eventually heard somebody in the background talking. It was a mountain biker.
Right.
I talked to him. He got her down to the water tank and she was okay.
Good.
But it was just.
She was just at the water tank?
No, she was way up.
Oh, okay.
someplace.
He got her.
Yeah.
He got her
Oh,
to the
okay.
water tank. But
You know, that's another thing too. You know, the best thing, if you're lost and you stay on the trail, don't leave the trail. Because there's a lot of other hikers around, mountain bikers, there's gonna be somebody. Just sit tight or ask. If you're lost, ask people. Some people are too ashamed to ask if they're lost.
Was there somebody we're supposed to call? Because if that mountain biker wasn't there, it was just the two of us.
Yeah, that's a whole deal. When you call search and rescue, you know, they have a volunteer group and they come out. I mean, they'll take off of work, they'll come out here. It's a huge situation when you ask for search and rescue. And that's why it's like, to me, you better be sure of a lot of details, because you don't want to make any false claims or have them come out and it's really nothing. So I usually wait it out, give all the opportunity. I only use them when I'm absolutely sure that I need them out there. And they've been here every single time I have asked them. Because that helicopter too, I mean, you can imagine the expenses and it's just not the volunteer search and rescue. Then Santa Clarita Station is out here, the sheriff's station, all of my Park Bureau sheriffs are all out here. Jim, the trail guy, Jim Hazard. One time he got a report of a park visitor saw somebody with a gun at Walker Ranch and reported it to Jim. Jim told me. I contacted dispatch, went to the sheriff's office. They didn't just send one sheriff down here. They sent like 7 vehicles, right? And then here comes AKs, here comes the shotguns. I couldn't believe the manpower. When they say there's somebody armed, they bring the firepower out. And then Jim was out there, and I was out there, and I was checking it out. Jim was on the trail, and I was just like hiding out at Walker Ranch, just observing everything. And then I see Jim interact with 2 guys. And so I yelled out, "Jim, everything okay?" He said, yeah, everything's fine, no problem. So I go out, I looked at him, I checked him out. It was a movie. The guys were doing a movie, right? They had a fake weapon. But they tried to hide it when a park visitor walked by. So a good mistake. But look what came out. The force and manpower, because they thought it was a real gun, a real situation. That's, makes the job as a fish and game warden even that more situational, because there's usually, if it's a hunter, they have the guns, right? So you're dealing with people or violators that have a weapon on them. That's why the job of a fish and game warden, there's more wardens that get shot and killed than any other peace officer in the country.
Who pays for all that when you have to call search and rescue?
No, we don't pay anything. They just come out and do the search and rescue for us. Now there's talk that if it's a fake call or something, they can actually bill you. I know at Vasquez Rocks, there was a lady, a hiker, that just didn't feel like hiking back. Really, this happened. And they called out search and rescue, and they brought the lady right back to the parking lot. She just walked back in her car and said bye. And she just simply didn't want to hike back. So there are people like that, I guess. There's crazies, Yeah.
So last week at Calls of the Canyons, when it was getting dark, someone was moving a branch. Someone thought it was a rifle, and they shut down the campus for like 3 hours.
That was the COC. Yeah, I heard about that. My son was going to COC.
It was a branch.
Yeah. Well, what's the guy doing with the branch on the college campus, right? Botany major or something, or what?
Thought it was a rifle.
You said somebody was making a movie. Was that somebody actually filming?
Yes, he was filming.
So did they not?
He didn't have a permit. When we have a permit, we do permits for filming here in my office. We always require one of those sheriffs to be with the film staff whenever even a fake gun is being used. Whenever they do any filming with a knife or a weapon, a gun, it's required that an LA County sheriff be present on the film set of the shoot. No questions asked. Otherwise, don't have any weapons. Yeah. So that's a county film law there. Okay, a few things about what you guys will probably see here in the park, working here in the park. Some violations, don't be alarmed, because this happens in my state parks too, when I worked in state parks, and it happens here. But here are some of the common law enforcement violations that you will see here at Plaza Rita. First one is dogs off leash. Dogs are always off. I even had a sheriff come up to me, because I told the head lieutenant, and I told every sheriff that comes to my office, you guys could better handle that problem, because you can't have loose dogs when you have wildlife in the park. You know, for other reasons too, not just because they'll be chasing rabbits or skunks or what have you. They leave pheromones behind. Deer won't cross those pheromones, the smell of a dog scent, you know. So it does all these things that you visually can't see. I had one sheriff that flat out looked me in the face, says, I don't do dog violations, you know. I said, what? You know, I said, let me tell you, when I was a supervisor for Topanga State Park, and my rangers that worked under me, they were that way too. And they let it go so bad, I would patrol Topanga State Park. There must have been 50 dogs running around loose, all hikers. There's dogs all over the place. I said, this is crazy. I said, you guys have to cite. And so to show them, I start citing everybody. And then the park hikers and visitors, they're trying to hide their dogs, and because they didn't bring a leash. They just let them run loose. They try to hide them in their shirts. And it was wild. And finally, we got it under control. And it took about 2-3 years of heavy enforcement to get the word out that if it's dog violation, you're going to be cited. The rangers were going to cite you. And that's what the sheriffs, they love staying in their vehicle. They got the radio. They got their shotgun. They feel comfortable and safe. But they know they have to exit the vehicle and intermingle with the volunteers, with me, the hikers, the visitors. They have to learn how to trust people, but they weren't trained that way through their academy. And that's a whole different ball game to be. It's like community policing, to be out in the community and walk amongst the sidewalk and all the different stores. It's a whole different deal, and these guys have yet learned how to do that type of patrol work, and they need to, because this is their new job. And you think about it, what a cake job. They're working, look at the clientele that we have here, right? We're great people. Our volunteers are great. Our visitors are great. It's a happy, good together, lovely family that we have in our parks. And that's what our sheriffs are dealing with. Good people, not bad people. Bad people go someplace where there isn't a sheriff, right? They just go to the park next door. Go to Santa Clarita or go to the Forest Service property. Don't come to the county.
We have found, if you have your vest on and you see somebody with a dog off leash, a simple, could you please put your dog
Yes.
back on the leash? 90% of the time works.
Yes.
And when it doesn't, when somebody gets surly, back off, walk away, and let the officer.
Exactly. Don't try to. Just by you advising them that there's a leash law, that's all you have to do. And you will get a majority of them complying. They know that. And there's a whole different thing about control. You're supposed to be controlling that dog. Well, the leashes now, they have a 100-foot leash, right? That dog is running around, but he's still on a leash.
Russ, too, it's
Yes.
important, and everything you said about dogs is
Yes.
absolutely true. And another thing that I've used, and it's true too, is that we have rattlesnakes in this
Yes.
park, and we have had dogs bitten and killed by rattlesnakes. So I think that scares a lot of people.
That has happened during my tenure here in the park.
That they run through, that wasn't their owner pets them later, it's gonna get poisoned.
Yes. And that's, okay, so dogs off leash. You will see people collecting firewood.
Wow.
We have a lot of oaks here. Most of our oaks are either diseased or infiltrated with beetles, and they're dying. And so we continuously get out dead trees, and a lot of them are oaks. And so a lot of times we'll cut up the oak tree and pile them up, and people see that wood. Oh, that's oak. I'm taking that home for firewood, for my barbecue. And so you see a lot of wood collecting. All they're doing is bringing that disease to the residents, and it goes out to their community and spreading around out there. But you will see that. I guess people think it's firewood for the taking. Graffiti. Ron is probably the the person that's reported more graffiti to me than any other volunteer I have in the park. And he does an excellent job because he's actually getting out even outside of our property. And what I'm seeing is that when he reports any graffiti in the park, in this park unit at Plaza Rita, I remove it immediately. I have my staff as a priority, get it off 24 hours or at least by the end of the week, get rid of that graffiti. I don't give them the pleasure of seeing that graffiti up there. Now, outside of the park, in the Angeles Forest area, it's a mess. Because I've never seen a maintenance man ever outside of our park unit, out of our boundary. So that's what you get. They don't take care of it. Years and years of compiling, and it's trying to trickle in to our property. But no, we try to stop it right at our boundary line. So you will get reports of graffiti. Metal detectors, yes.
And the number one favorite place for graffiti in the park that I have found is the water tank.
Yes. If you look up at the water tank, you notice a mismatch of all different colors. That's Jeff and used to be Augustine that used to go out there and paint over it. Paint over
See
it.
something, say something.
Yeah. You know the worst graffiti I've ever seen that was heartbreaking was in the tunnel.
Mural.
Yeah, on the mural, someone did like 4 foot, 5 feet, big bold letters of some kind of weird gang graffiti. The same graffiti over and over, right over the mural.
Beautiful mural.
And thank God, I guess there was a protectant on there. And Vicki Cunningham, by herself for about a week, went out there with a can of acetone and a rag and got all that graffiti off. It was red right over the mural. And just by her hand doing it, she got all of that graffiti off. Not only that, she even touched up the mural to make it look better. She actually painted over the mural. And then PCNCA, they came through, and I don't know what the sum of money that they paid to have it protected.
Yeah, we paid, it was, I think a couple $1,000
Yeah,
to have it protected.
it's expensive. You don't just put it on. You have to have the right person, the right company. It's done professionally. So yeah, we do have a protected covering of that mural today. So thank God. But yeah, that was hard.
There's graffiti on the water tower right now.
Okay. Yeah, that happens. Like I said, you could just,
You saw it.
a holiday, right? We had a holiday yesterday. Kids are out. Yeah, good job for the new volunteers, right? Covering graffiti.
Is that water tank functional?
No. In fact, a little bit about that water tank. I did put in, there was Prop A? That bond?
Parcel tax.
Yeah, there's a bond that passed from your property tax bill. And you notice it says Parks and Recreation. It's gone up. You're charging $1 or something for, it's supposed to go on forever now. Well, that money is coming to LA County Parks. And I put in for $500,000 to remove that tank. Yeah, that water tank. It has no purpose. Maybe put a nature center or an observation platform on top of it, or there's gotta be something, but of all the, nobody knows how to remove it. What I'm hearing, you have to cut it up in sections and then bring all the metal down. And actually, it was Kevin Reagan, Ron's friend, that said he was successful in removing water tanks like that from his LA County parks. He said he had the knowledge of how to get rid of it. So there is a source. You need to ask Kevin how he did that.
I gotta give him a call.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
When I was driving up here, there was an animal.
Yeah, bobcat.
Who do you call for something
Well,
like
they
that?
called me, Sarah Brewer from Vasquez Rock. She called me and she said there's a report that there was a bobcat At that time, it was still in good shape. So we're thinking of going over there and putting it in our freezer. We give it to we have a volunteer that's a taxidermist, Olivia, and it would be a good one for her to work on. Except Jim, where's Jim? Jim reported it's it's in the middle of the road. It's been run over several times. Poor specimen at this time. Yeah, but you will run across possibly the Canyon Road. I mean, a lot of deers. The deer from Disney Ranch, they had a large herd of deer there, and when that fire took out all the vegetation there, they all ended up on my property. Because if this, remember on that map here, so all this is burned. This part and westward is the only unburned parcel of the San Gabriel Mountains that did not burn. So where are all the animals you think are trying to head towards? Westward, towards our park and further west.
Actually, a lot of them got roasted because it's a box canyon and the fire.
Yes, from the opposite direction.
Came around
Yeah.
and jumped over and it burned.
That even makes this area more exclusive for the animals, This is the last frontier they have left. So, okay, one more violation. Metal detectors. You will see guys out there with metal detectors because of the Yoakum Golden Dream and all the information about finding gold here in the park unit. Now, what is really relevant that a lot of people never talk about, but remember U.S. Currency? U.S. had gold coins back in the 1800s. Guess where all that gold came from? Placerita. Placerita. That's where the gold came from before the mother lode. I find that amazing, But anyway, we still get guys out there, even monthly. We hear guys with metal detectors. We hear guys trying to create a slough box up in the canyon. We hear guys with pitchforks. I mean, they're out there looking for their gold, Funny thing though, when all that erosion came out and there's a lot of sand that came in our parking lot, it sparkles of gold. Fake gold, but sparkles of gold out there. Take a look at it through your own sight there. So, 4 violations. It might be a test question, right?
Yep.
Dogs off leash. You will see people collecting firewood. You will see graffiti. You will see metal detectors out there. I'm like, what should you do? Come to my office and report it to me or to my staff. That's all you got to do. But those are the common violations. Now, we do have a creek out there, and every park that I've worked with that had a creek or a little reservoir, always we see fishermen. And when you see fishermen, what do they have to have in order to fish? Beer. A license. That's a good one. That's true. But no, a license. Now I've been here for 8 years. And I've seen that creek flow, and I've never seen a fisherman try to fish the creek. So yeah, there is no fishing. I've never even seen a fisherman. So that's not ever something you're going to ever see.
But you do see people with what looks like a fishing rod with a loop, and they're up there trying to catch lizards.
Okay, but that's common.
So
They
can't do that either.
a noose. Yeah, you can catch lizards, but you better have a fishing license in your possession.
Really?
Yeah, that's the key. Fishing license.
Fishing for anything?
No. I mean for like lizards, salamanders, reptiles.
Are they allowed to
Yeah,
take them off
you
the
can do
boat?
that with a fishing license. That's why even like Dave Sipes, when he hunts, he carries a fishing license with him too. Besides, yes.
The other thing in those choices, and people up here trying to can, along with a line of metal detectors, you can't pan people.
Yep.
I don't know how they're panning it so dry, but
I know. They're trying for it. The rule in any park, state, probably feds, and I could only speak for state and for county, you can't take anything. You can't take the rocks, you can't take the flowers, you can't take the grass. You're not allowed to take anything out of the park. And before I got into a career with the Parks Department, I didn't know. I was at Refugio State Park, and I was taking a taxonomy of angiosperms class, meaning flowering plants. And we had to create dried plants, flowering plants, and turn those in and with a collection of plants. And I was in the park, I said, wow, what is that? I've never seen that before. I started going at it and collecting all these different specimens of plants. And it was like a native garden that I was in. And I was just cutting away, and the ranger stopped me, and he explained to me, oh, this is well, it's not marked, it's just out in the open. How was I to know? Oh, yeah, it's okay, go ahead, blah, blah, blah. But I was a violator myself, because people don't know. You know, when you come into the park, you see there is a white sign by the Sheriff's Department that says that you're to know the rules of the park before you come in. And that puts the burden and responsibility on everybody, on the visitor. It's like when you go fishing, right? You don't know there's size limits to all the different fish. You don't know what the limit is of how many you can take back with you. You don't know all the rules. But as soon as you have that fishing rod in your hand, you're then responsible. So they put the burden onto you. It's like driving, right? When you're driving a car, you're supposed to know all the rules.
You mentioned taking lizards with a permit.
Mm-hmm.
What about snakes?
I think that might fall under that too. There's an amphibian clause in there. Yeah, reptiles and amphibians. I'm not sure. Okay, one more thing. Okay, some future projects that we're having. The good news, okay, I was going to give this, I gave a copy to Ron, but just last Tuesday, that's how recent this is. So last Tuesday, January 15th, the Board of Supervisors went ahead and approved our Canyon Trail Recovery Project. Yeah, finally. We could not do anything with two things. One, we had to get a Fish and Wildlife permit because we're working in the stream bed, and we need the LA County Board of Supervisors approval to do the work. So we just got this. The good news is that besides having it passed, the head person that's in charge of this project, Dan Barati, he wrote me an email right after that approved. So this is from Daniel Barati. Russ, I just wanted to let you know that the board adopted the Canyon Trail today. I've already requested an updated scope and proposal from E-Corp. That's one of the companies we're using to spend money on for them to research the biological aspects of the Canyon Trail. And we should be able to get them started right away. I will also set up another meeting between E-Corp and the CCCs to determine what work can be started as soon as possible in order to expedite the opening of the trail. We were originally anticipating April of this year to sign a contract with CCCs to do the repairs of the trail. Originally, when we met with the CCCs, they said September, October. We said, anything earlier? They said, well, we got this project. So what they did us a favor, and they put us before the project. So that was April. Now with this thing already passing, so Daniel is pretty much already dealing with the CCCs. As soon as you guys can work, get started. We have the money. So yeah, that's really good news. So because the Canyon Trail, let me tell you, I mean, it saved Ron's life. You know, Ron, I think he had, a heart condition or something?
Sure.
He was here every day, hiking, exercising, get that heart stimulated, get that blood flowing, you know? And it saved so many people. You know, I used to have hundreds of Korean hikers here that all lived in Stevenson Ranch. I've never seen that. Asians hiking, right? So I stopped them. I stopped the Koreans. You know, why do you come here in my park? Is it because I'm Asian? No. Because they said it looks like Korea. Korea. I guess chaparral and this type of environment. I guess it looks like Korea. And so they're all gone. I don't even see them anymore. And they would be here in the park first thing in the morning. They would walk around every single day. I mean, I lost a huge clientele. And everybody, I still to this day, I'm getting phone calls. When's the Canyon Trail? It means so much to this community. They don't care about my other smaller trails. They want that 2 miles into Walker Ranch and that 2 miles back. It is nice because you're in the canyon. It's shaded, beautiful trees. You got water right next to you. What could be better, right? It's flat, really not much of a climb. So perfect place to go hiking. So hopefully we can get that back in shape. Thank God I had a meeting with Fish and Wildlife, the environmental scientists. We had all these plans of making it all nice and neat and everything. He told us, don't do any of that. Just put it back the way you had it. Just level it out a little bit. And that's all. Put signs out, keep the hikers in the right direction. In case there's a big storm coming, then just close it off. Because the hikers are walking through the creek in 2 junctures of that trail. So when there's rainy weather, then I'm to close the park down, the hike, the trail down. But other than that, keep it open. Let it be natural. It's been like that for over 50 years in the hands of the county, so keep it open as is.